We're live and we're recording this for future people can watch it anytime after this. It'll be on YouTube and Facebook and blah, 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 blah. So welcome everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Table Talks. And today I am in conversation with a 26-year veteran of our manual therapy world, a leader in the teaching world and a presenter at past and upcoming fascial symposiums, a man that needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. And I'm talking to Robert Livy of the ligamentous articular strain technique, or LAST technique. Rob, welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody has brought their coffee.
Yeah,
and
water and
just thank you to everybody that sent in some questions. I've got some questions from everybody ready to go here, so we'll get to those near the end.
I'll leave some time at the end. Oh yeah, I forgot to put my timer thingy on, so we're not like an hour. Because you and I, once we get started, man, oh my gosh.
We were 90 minutes yesterday.
For our 35-minute chat.
No.
Oh man, at least there wasn't beer involved. All right, so I'll set that up. So yeah, we had a great chat recently, and I really wanted to share a lot of the things that I know about you. I mean, you and I have known each other. I think the first time I met you was in 2012 at the Fascist Symposium or Congress in Vancouver, and then sporadically we taught together in the same building, and then a couple of times taught together in the same room at different annual general meetings for, I forget, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and yeah. So I've known you for a while. We've worked together for a while, and I've had a great admiration for your work and wanted to share all of that with the world. Nice. So I guess I'd really like to find out, or maybe you just give me a background into how you became a therapist.
I had a couple of injuries in high school, and on sort of one side of my family there's medicine, and on the other side of the family there's military and policing sort of things. So my genetics were kind of split both ways kind of evenly, and so I had a couple of injuries, and I'd been through some rehab with a chiropractor. My uncle's a chiropractor also, and I thought, you know, that's an interesting sort of profession to sort of get into. And literally I had an application for the RCMP in one hand and an application to Canadian College of Massage Therapy in the other. And I figured, well, I'll apply for massage first, and if that doesn't happen, well, then I'm heading off to Regina and going to Depot. So the massage application got accepted, and I started in '92, January 2nd. I was in Ontario, Canadian College of Massage and Hydrotherapy. Wow. So yeah, that's essentially how I got started. Was getting treatment from a chiropractor. I thought that would be something that I was interested in. Yeah. But at that time, sciences weren't strong for me, and I didn't really understand that the amount of science, heaviness in science background and education the chiropractic curriculum was. So that chiropractor had a registered massage therapist working with him, and I thought, oh well, I've never even thought of that before. So I discovered that there was a school in Vancouver, and they had a weekend introductory course. And on the very first night of that introductory course, I fell in love with it, and I had no plan B. That was my plan A, and that's what I was doing.
Nice, all in.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, there was no looking back.
And so you just immediately, from school, you just went straight into your own practice, or?
Yeah, from after graduating, came back to BC, wrote board exams, and literally started practicing as soon as I was registered.
Nice. You know, I think it's probably good for new therapists to know, but also students to know. But first, I've known you more as a teacher, and I've watched you teach. I've never actually taken your class, but it is a plan. And having taught myself for 15 years, I know the ups and downs that I've gone through, but I'm not a very strategic thinker. I just kind of give it all away from the heart. And I watched you teach, and I thought we kind of spoke the same language. I'm fascinated to find out how you act. What was the journey that led you to becoming a teacher? Because you seem like a real natural, and you've got so much information, and I'd love to know how that happened.
Well, looks are deceiving. It doesn't come natural, and as far as smarts goes, that's just a lot of consistent work on a daily basis. I was aware that the education that we all received outside of at college was sort of the base, and that there was a lot more to it. Mm-hmm. So I just started investigating with different practitioners, physios, other massage therapists, chiropractors. I started looking into what other medical professions were doing in order to help my patients, so that I could learn about what they were doing, and I could use those people as a resource for referrals, but also to educate myself and to help educate patients. And then I found a number of medical professionals that I liked how they taught and the information that they were providing, and I would just take all their courses. And in some people, over the last 26 years, I've taken their courses multiple times, because as they've grown, how they've taught and their content has also changed. So I was able to grow that way also. So I'm kind of a nerd as far as taking postgrad courses go. And like this past year, even with the injuries that I'm rehabbing from, I've got over 100 credits for education. So just a constant learner, right? You just have to be a constant learner, because everything is changing. You have to keep up to date with all the current evidence-informed research for manual therapy and medicine. So I had a number of patients, and I was actually treating a lot of massage therapists as patients at the time. Mm-hmm. And they were sort of, communicating to me. It's like, hey, you know what? You do a lot of reading. You know a lot about a lot of stuff. You should probably go and teach. The colleges are always looking for instructors. So I applied to West Coast College Massage Therapy, started teaching there 2000, 2001, and quickly learned that although I had a lot of education and knowledge in my head, I had zero skill getting it out of my mouth and into a student's head and making a connection with the students. So there were a group of us at the time at West Coast College that we were enrolled in the Provincial Instructor Diploma's course. And that basically teaches you how to teach your profession. And going through that course was absolutely just an amazing experience. Any of you that are out there right now that are educators that think you know how to teach, you don't. The Provincial Instructor Diploma course, it teaches you how to set up your lesson plans and curriculums and exams and questions, and it's just a fantastic course. And once I took that and I started rewriting the lesson plans and curriculum for the courses that I was teaching, then you start honing your skill of making a connection with students and making sure that you connect with all the different learning styles and disciplines and
right.
So on and so forth. So
it's not just sort of coming out like a
yeah. So even though it looks like it's a natural thing for me, it's actually very strategic, and it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a learned thing. I kind of learned it the hard way. I realized that passion and knowledge do not a teacher maketh.
It's good to have.
But when talking about shit and
yeah, it's good to have the passion and the knowledge, but when you start teaching from ego and attitude, then you lose the whole class, and you're not making a connection, and you're kind of there for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, we've all learned from those people. So, what was the name of that course you took again? I'm gonna post it afterwards so everyone can see what.
It was in BC. We have it. I think it's through. I can't remember who it's through, but it's called the Provincial Instructor's Diploma course.
Okay, I'll find it and I'll post it.
Yeah, PID course.
PID. Okay, awesome. What a journey. So what were some of the I mean, I can kind of assume what the highlights of being a teacher are, but what are the challenging elements of being a teacher?
I think the challenging elements for being a teacher are just making sure that you connect with, let's say there's a basic 4 adult learning styles. There's more, but for simplicity's sake, we'll say that there's 4. And it's important as an instructor that you recognize the kind of learning style that you have, because that's going to be your strength that you're going to teach to. But then you also have to recognize that, that makes up 1/4 of the class. So you have to figure out how to connect with the other 3/4. So there's different strategies and ways to do all that kind of stuff. And I think the other challenging thing is that when you try and communicate something to somebody and it's just not in the format that they get, then you have to switch how you see it and change it to their perception, and then try and word it back to them so that it actually makes a connection with them.
Nice. I guess, actually, while I'm hearing this, I'm realizing that the question was really geared, it was obviously geared to you, but it was really sort of inadvertently geared towards people's potential students of your class, or any class, really. How do I word this? Being in a classroom situation, being at the front of the room, being qualified to be at the front of the room is one thing. The challenges that I have are connecting with every single person, even the person that says they're just there for the credits. I spend a lot of extra time with them, not just trying to win them over, but just sort of give them a real purpose to be there. And so I guess the question is sort of geared to potential students, like, what's the mindset you can go into? And this is what's happening at the front of the room. Here's the words you never hear. So really, I didn't really think about it like that when I wrote it down, but that's really where the question of challenging as a teacher came from. But it's a good answer. Are those 4 learning styles the thing you learn in the PID?
Yeah, it's one of the things that you learn. Yeah, it's taught throughout all the courses, but there is a course that is heavily, when I went through it, it was heavily focused on that. So
specific to that.
Yeah. I've been in those situations where, I used to start my class by saying, just, give me 10 seconds. Who are you? Why are you here? What's your history? That kind of stuff. And I remember I had one experienced therapist. I think she was there. I think she had this is about a decade ago. So I think at that point she had about 26 years experience. And she's like, I'm just here for the credits. I don't believe anything that I don't think I'm going to learn anything from this course. I've been to see lots of other people, and, you might as well just give me my certificate now and I can just stop wasting your time. And I was like, okay, challenge accepted. You're now the guinea pig. Get up here to the front of the class.
Nice.
And let me show you what we're going to do today. But I've always taught from the perspective of that what I teach doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's not one of those things. I don't want to be one of those gurus that says, it's always this way. It's always going to be blue skies and white clouds, and it works on everybody. I was like, no, it doesn't work on everybody. And, we know what the percentages are. And so, so I was just open and honest and had her up at the front, and we actually made some amazing changes in her knee that she was shocked about. And, she became a huge advocate for me. So that was awesome.
Awesome. Nice outcome. Yeah. It's not always rainbows and unicorns. And I like that idea. It kind of makes me think that maybe the best approach, even nonverbal, is to come in from let's just try this on for size. You signed up. It's got nothing to do with the money anymore because you're here.
Yeah.
We made this kind of a commitment. There's got to be at least 51% of you that's ready to take something in.
Yeah. John Maxwell wrote a book called The 5 Levels of Leadership. Mm-hmm. And, at any point in time, you are either level 1 or level 5 with whoever your audience is.
Yeah.
And level 1 is, for example, some people are tuning in because they've heard your name, they've heard my name, they've heard a little bit of reputation, but they don't really know anything about us. So they're here, we're level 1 at this point. Level 2 is like, well, I'm here, but I'm here not just because of who you guys say you are, but I'm here basically just for my own benefits. I want to know what I can get from you so that I can take it and I can learn it and do something else with it. And then you go all the way through to level 5 where, level 4, level 5 is that you've actually taught people, you respect them, they respect you. There's an amazing sort of relationship that is there. There's no egos. Everybody's on the same level playing field. And now those people that you've taught are now leading others. And, you always have that sort of dynamic in a classroom also. And with that person that was just there for the credits, well, to her, I was at level 1. And over the course of the weekend, my challenge was to get to maybe like a level 3, level 4 with her.
Yeah. Nice.
So,
interesting challenge on top of just being able to offer your information in your heart.
Yeah.
Would you be comfortable sharing some of your top teachers, like the people that taught you to be a better, like maybe you took a course and went, wow, I want to be more like this. I want to come from that place, or,
Yeah, there's a number of people that they had various aspects that with everybody, and also with myself, there's various aspects that we all have that we like and that we don't like. It's like, well, I really like that about that person, but I don't really want to do that. I'm very proud to call this guy a good friend of mine and a mentor, but there's a therapist out here who's been practicing. He's into his mid 30 years, almost 40 years now. His name's Natalie Rayo. Natalie teaches a fascial mobilization class. He's been teaching it for forever. He's taught at the college level for a number of years. So Natalie is just, huge, amazing passion. Just his attitude of how he comes to a patient or to a student working with the tissue. It's just always very calm, very collected, very respectful of everybody in the room. Just an incredible man. Next would be a really good friend of mine that I graduated. Actually, we graduated together. His name's Chris Heggie. Chris Heggie introduced me to the Provincial Instructor Diploma course. He actually helped me get into West Coast College. And he now runs I think it's still the only privately run and funded cadaver dissection lab in Canada. And that's in Coquitlam here. So he runs somatic explorations. So Chris is just an awesome guy. And then a lot of people that I've just sort of watched through like personal development and that kind of stuff have been sort of influencers and motivations for me also. So, but there's we both have a list of people that we just completely hated being being taught by. I remember spending somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000 for this 6-day course that was taught by an international, group of supposed leaders that were from somewhere in Europe. And these two main instructors had been taught by the one main guy that came up with the theory or the idea, but they had learned from him at completely different times. So like I said, I've taken some courses, 2 or 3 times. I've followed people through their career because they've grown through their career, their perspectives have changed. Well, that's what happened with these two. One person took it at the beginning and one person took it maybe, after this guy had been practicing for 20 or 30 years. So they had completely different perspectives about how things should have done. And they had an argument in front of the class where they agreed to disagree. I was like, I'm paying $2,000 for people to have an argument and waste 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So, we've all got those experiences.
Yeah. And it's either that, or it's like you said earlier, the this is the way it is thing, or the hyping the class with group hugs and high fives. And it's like, let's just get on with it. Yeah. I know what you mean. And I have, and it was more than $2,000 for that weekend. The getting there, the course itself, the getting there, staying there, being there, eating, all that, the rented car, all that.
Yep.
And I still walk. I go with no expectations now. I love being wowed, but I go with no expectations, and even if it's like I'm just cringing inside or rolling my eyes or I want to leave because it's just like in my head. The second I say, this is a huge waste of time, I stay to the very end, and I'll fight tooth and nail to get one pearl out of the guy, And it's all my ego versus their ego. So I know what you mean about the courses that we love and the courses that we don't love, but I still learn something from those, or I like to think that I do. Or it sounds good now that we're live, but
even though I don't resonate with maybe their style of instruction, at least I'm there. I'm gaining the content and the information, and then I can take all of that and I can process it and I can incorporate that into my own stuff for education with my patients afterwards. So it's still worth it, but it's not a good environment to have to acquire that information.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm just thinking now, what having been a teacher for this long, probably decades, 20 years now, I think, is it, teaching?
I think I started teaching I started teaching at the college level at 2001.
So, oh shit. Okay, so
yeah. Oh, it is 20 years.
Yeah, pretty much. How did that change your treatment, being a teacher, when you're in treatment?
Didn't really change what I do. It just, as we know, we all use our hands. We all treat soft tissue and different densities and of tissues. And we all pretty much do pretty similar stuff. We all do joint mobilizations and passive range of motion and active assisted, and we all do all that kind of stuff. How you connect with that tissue, that's a skill that needs to be learned and practiced. So I think manually what we do is probably pretty similar, but how you perceive it, how you come to it, how you explain what you're doing, that sort of knowledge, how you present yourself in that environment. We all know the research basically shows that we actually have more influence with what we say and how we say it and how we react with the patient and the environment that we set up than what we do with our hands. Yeah. We talked about this yesterday with patients. They have certain thoughts, beliefs, and expectations that they're coming to you. Either they've never seen you before, they've never had massage before, or they've had some type of experience with some type of medical professional in the past. So we always have to sort of work with that and do that. So in some cases, for me, it's important that that I make a connection and that we have a nice.
I'm trying to build a rapport.
Like a very balanced therapeutic relationship. Like typically with a therapeutic relationship, there's this power sort of imbalance that is present, and I try and balance that out as much as I can.
So that brings up other questions. Like there's two. Is how do you work? Like, are you working to try and resolve the pain issue that they came in with, or do you work globally? And then you mentioned something else. I'm just going to write them down. But the other one was your involvement with the client. So first, how like when you're in clinic and somebody comes to you with something, I've had this pain on and off for 18 years, blah blah blah. How do you? What's your approach to treatment of something hard like that?
So I've done a lot of reading and a lot of watching and sort of content acquisition from the San Diego Pain Summit. For those of you that are out there, San Diego Pain Summit is just absolutely awesome for education. They've actually got an amazing sort of deal on right now where for a very small amount of money, you can acquire, you can stream all their videos for I think it's like the last 4 or 5 years of pain summits. And they bring in leaders in pain science and research and so on and so forth. So amazing thought leaders for pain. So having an understanding of, you know, let's say having a basic understanding of how pain works, because we're still sort of exploring and understanding all that stuff. We understand that, you know, we come from sort of the biopsychosocial sort of perspective, for simplicity's sake. And we recognize that as just manual therapists with just manual therapy, we're not that good. We're not that good with changing someone's pain. We're all amazing at restoring function. I can take a joint that is limited with range of motion and I can get full range of motion. But as far as mitigating the pain experience for the patient, I know that as a pure manual therapist that we kind of suck at it. But there's some strategies that we can all sort of utilize in order that work far better than, you know, manual therapy on its own. And when you incorporate these other techniques with manual therapy, then we start having amazing outcomes. So we have what are called top-down and bottom-up sort of perspectives. So a bottom-up would be your manual therapy. A top-down would be sort of communication, you know, working with those thoughts, beliefs, and expectations with your patient. What kind of environment are you treating in? What kind of wording do you use with your patients? What's the narrative or the stories that you tell your patients about what you're doing, how you're doing it, why you're doing it, and just sort of like how you treat your patient. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, that, you know, a lot of therapists, they get into the habit of when they've been seeing patients for a period of time, some people get a little bit complacent. And basically you're in the room for 30 seconds. Okay, how are you doing? Any changes? No changes. Okay, everything is no new, no red flags. Okay, just great. Get on the table. I'll be back in a minute.
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Yeah, and then you go get a coffee, you come back in, you just start treating. You know, there was minimal assessment, if any. You know, maybe you were doing an assessment, watching and, you know, being observant of your patient while you had 30 seconds with them. But there are those therapists, but then there's some really other amazing therapists that are out there that, you know, they never do that. So I'm not blanket saying that everybody's like that. So
yeah, would never
take that out of context.
Sorry, go ahead.
But what I do is, when a patient comes in the room, I'm comfortable with maybe the first 5, 10, 15 minutes of just sitting and having a conversation. It may have been a week or 10 days, or it may have been a month since the last time I saw this person. I need to catch up. We need to catch up with each other and see what's going on. And I think it's really important for patients to have that opportunity to be heard, because they don't get that with a lot of other medical professions. And one of the things I said yesterday was that more so with new patients, because my regular older patients, they've come accustomed to how I work. But with new patients, they've gotten used to sort of giving their 30-second spiel about what's wrong with them and what they've been going through, because typically that's the only amount of time that they've had, or maybe a little bit more. But I will strategically create an awkward pause. And
because it makes them uncomfortable, and then just keep on talking.
People don't like pauses. They don't like silence.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that.
We know that people like to talk about themselves, so they're going to try and fill the space, and that's sort of where, you know, we get a lot of truths that come out. So
nice. Yeah, it's not. They're not going to fill it up with just, you know, fodder, like small talk. They're going to continue on with the stream of consciousness that you started. Let's find this out.
Yeah. The other thing we talked about yesterday was
oh dear.
There's
you still hear me?
Oh yeah.
Sorry, that was my phone. Can you still hear me?
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. Yeah, so there's another thing that I think would be really beneficial for a lot of clinicians that are out there is to take a motivational interviewing course. I sent you the link yesterday, but Paul Burke is a motivational interviewer instructor out of Victoria, British Columbia, who's just absolutely awesome. So motivational interviewing, it actually educates you on how to structure sort of a conversation. And not necessarily, when you say motivational interviewing, it sounds like I'm doing like Tony Robbins' personal development, where it's a lot of sis boom ba and fist pumping and stuff. And it's not. It's how to strategically take what your patient is saying and
just
sort of
just trying to build a framework within which to.
Yeah, you have to sort of. It's more of educating them about what information they have provided to you, and allowing them the opportunity to sort of be able to choose options that they may or may not have known were available to them in order to go in a direction that's going to improve their quality of life. Nice. And we can do that with, we're not counselors, we're not psychologists, we're not psychiatrists, we're not stepping outside of our realm at all, because we're not the ones that are providing direction to the patient. With motivational interviewing, the patient or the person you're talking to, they're always directing the conversation. So
that's really awesome. I'll put that on the list at the end, or I'll, when I'm not sure. There's a bunch of questions that kind of answers a bunch of different questions that I had in my head, which was like client participation is clearly like more than important to you. It's crucial. I mean, you won't just, no one ever just receives a treatment from you. You insist on like that participation, edification, and for, even if it's just for their own brain to start processing the information, then it's that which starts to the healing process for themselves. And I find that really important. I'm always enamored by people that do that and how they talk about it, and that helps me a lot to hear that, because sometimes as therapists we kind of live in a bubble, especially as teachers. People sort of have this image that you got it all together, and I'm constantly learning, and so to hear you say that really helps me a lot, because sometimes at minute 10, thinking this is going to take 4 or 5 more minutes, am I wasting time? And it's all such crucial information when they say, oh yeah, and I had this surgery, but that was 40 years ago. It's like, oh, tell me more. I need to know this information. So thanks for that answer. It's really good. Do you go on that theme, do you issue correctives? Like you do the work, you're talking about the work, you're explaining the work, this is the work, these are the results, and then they leave? Or you say, now I'm going to email you your homework, or we're going to videotape the correctives that you're going to do them, and I'll know if you haven't done them. Yeah,
I've got a circle of other medical professionals that do like active rehab. They just do it better than I do, and they get paid to spend that time with the patient and so on and so forth. So there's a number of times where I'll be with a patient, we'll be talking back and forth, and I'll say, who's perfect for you is Paul. So I'm going to give Paul a call, and he's going to be able to, he's way better at it than I am. I want you to see the person who's going to do it better than me. So, I'm going to pick up the phone, and I'll just call the person at that point. It's like, hey, Paul, I got Bob in front of me. Bob's got this. I'm making a referral to you. You guys can have a conversation. If you like each other, then you guys can continue
That must be such a confidence builder for the client. To have not that you have that person, but you take the time right now to take care of this. Now, I'll call them later and I'll send you the coordinates. It's like, let's do it.
Yeah, I'll typically say to the patients, like, hey, I've got somebody that I think would be really good for you. Either as a chiropractor or a physio or an active rehab or a kinesiologist or a stretching coach or somebody. Hey, would you mind if I give him a call right now? If you don't want me to take up the time in the treatment, then I'll call them afterwards. But I'm just going to let you know that, if you want, I will call them for you, and you'll hear back from them today or tomorrow.
Nice. That's really awesome. Really glad to hear that.
So I do that, but I also, like we've got some amazing therapists in the office that we work with, and I've got some amazing therapists outside the office that I work with, and there's a lot of times where I will, you kind of, when you've been with a patient for a while, you tend to lose perspective, and there's a lot of times where it's like, I can't see any longer. I don't know what I'm looking at. I've lost perspective. I need a new set of eyes.
Yeah.
So I'll just bring in another therapist, or I'll refer that patient to the other therapist. And then, sometimes we'll get all three of us in a room.
Yeah. I love
and then
that.
We'll get and then we'll collaborate, and, the patient ends up benefiting from it in the end. So.
Yeah. I love that. I love I've heard myself say the line, I can't give you 100%. It's been 5 weeks or a couple of months, and it's like, just hang on a sec. Are you okay with somebody else coming in the room? They're like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. And you bring them in, and then within 5 minutes, this other person's like, bing, 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 bing. Did you try? What about this? And the person on the table, like, holy shit. Then all of a sudden you got two people working on them, and there was my thought was, I didn't really put much thought into it beforehand. I just went ahead and did it, and I thought afterwards, was I really being imposing? Was I sort of out of line? But their response was like, I have never had anybody care that much. I've never had anybody like, it's all, they weren't really suggesting that other therapists were egotistical, but it's just like the other person was just diving in and trying so many things and never stopped long enough to say, maybe I'm not the right guy.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot on that. So I'm really glad to hear you say that. I have a bunch of questions about fascia congresses and those takes, but you said you had some other questions that other people wanted to ask. Let's
one of them was Matthew. Thanks, Matthew. Hope you're here watching. Matthew had asked about recommendations for massage guns. So we've seen a number of those different products that look like a gun, and basically it's got a thumper at the end of it or something. His question was about recommending any of those products for patients. I use a thumper in my own practice. I use it strategically because I know that it stimulates certain mechanoreceptors at certain areas, and it does certain things neurologically. As far as recommending patients to get it, I don't know if that's within our scope of practice to recommend that a patient do that, because there's always liability and a risk of harm that comes along with that. You can tell a patient don't use it over hard tissue, but all of a sudden they're taking the massage gun to their spouse, and they're massage gunning the spinous processes or the skull or something, right? And there's just a liability that kind of goes with that. So I don't really recommend that, but I have had a number of people that have gone out and they've bought their own stuff, and then they've come in and say, hey, what do you think about this? I will then, I'll ask them to bring it in, whatever that is, so that I can have a look at it. And then I'll say, okay, here's how I would like you to use it. Don't use it this way, use it this way. And then that all gets documented in their chart notes, so that, liability is
right, for sure.
With.
Yeah.
But I don't have any specific one that I like. Thumper was the only product that was around when I started, so they're kind of my go-to is what I use. So
you work with a lot of ligament stuff. Are you doing the percussion on ligament, like on joint tissues, or
no, I don't do any of that stuff.
Okay. Was there another question there that was?
That was the main one. That was the main one so far.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to you attended, I know you've attended several fascial congresses, and that you were part of the British Fascial Symposium, and that one that you were supposed to go to in Berlin, I think, and then you ended up having a car accident.
Yeah.
Like the day before or something, before you're supposed to leave, and couldn't make that.
4 days before, yeah.
Gosh. What's your take on let's say I'm asking on the behalf of anyone that's watching that's either a new therapist, a student therapist, An old timer, lots of experience that's never gone. What's your recommendation on the fascial congresses?
I think they're awesome to go to, because it's not just a room of massage therapists. It's a room of medical professionals and scientists and researchers and clinicians of all different disciplines. I think it's great to go to because it gets you into the science and the research of the tissue, of fascial tissue. There's a lot of myth and trend that is out in the profession all over the place, and gaining the education, the knowledge from the actual scientists and the researchers, and listening to them say, it does this, it doesn't do that. But then, looking through social media and seeing all these claims from people who don't really understand any of the science or the research into the tissue, it puts you in a different category. So you'll have patients that will come to you and say, oh, hey, I went and I saw this other practitioner and they said that they stretched my fascia and they stretched my IT band and they were able to, mold this and move this and
fix me.
Yeah, they were able to fix. Yeah, we don't use. We have a joke in our office that we don't use the F word any longer.
Yeah,
we don't fix anybody.
Fix is a word.
Yes, so it gives you the knowledge and the education to better educate your patients on what really is happening and what the scientists and the researchers are saying that we're capable of doing as manual therapists and what we're not capable of doing. Yeah. And they're all really good at doing that. I know Robert Sipe is always really fantastic at saying, we used to think that we could do this, but now we know that we can't. And what we know is that we actually don't know what we're doing. Yeah. Or we know that we can do this, but we can't do that. So the congresses are awesome for that stuff.
Good point. And I always really enjoyed Robert because I couldn't really keep up with what he was talking about in his abstracts when he would put out information. But then I saw him on stage, and not only is he charismatic, he speaks very well and enormously knowledgeable. But one of the things that he said, and it was a takeaway on that particular portion of that day, was he was like, we practice this. We don't do this. Like we are experts at this and we do it like this. We practice this. And I learned something yesterday that I now have to take out of my speech to you because I realized, it's a 5-minute conversation in the hallway with one of the Steckel family, and I need to adjust. And so that was my big takeaway was people like that say, keep us humble.
Yeah.
Rather than humiliated. And I really, I was aware of the fascial congresses from Betsy Ann Barron and Doreen Killens, and they'd gone to Holland for 2008, I think. And then, said, you really need to come to this in 2012. And I went in with a big open mind and open heart. And it was like drinking from a fire hydrant. I was just like, the end of day one, everyone was like, let's go for a drink and dinner. I was like, I can't lie down. I can't even think. And I was exhausted from the amount of information. But by the end of the weekend, my feeling was this is probably the most important thing I could be doing as a therapist for my clients and for my students. And I was very impressed. I think you said something like this. I was very impressed by the fact that there was like 1,000 people in that room, in the morning and in the evening, and then there were the breakaways during the day. At least 500 of them were therapists. Apparently the congresses in 2008 and earlier, it was all scientists talking about fascia and a couple of therapists going, yeah, I get that. And then over the next 8 years, had grown to like 50-50. So people like Schleip and Tom Myers and Bill Hedley, and the guys who make the films, the scientific, the medical films of Strolling Under the Skin.
Yeah, Jean-Claude Gumberto.
Yeah, Jean Barcoul.
Yeah.
And I think my feeling was, yeah, we should all go. They can be enormously expensive to get there and be there and stay there and get in the door. But, it was worth every cent for me, being able to have that kind of confidence and make those contacts and have 5 minutes with somebody like Bill Hedley and just be a part of a crowd of people listening to him talk. And he doesn't know me from Adam, but you know, he changed my life and in my therapeutic life and a little bit of my spiritual life. So I
What's
think
really cool is that the Fascial Research Society, once you're a member of that, they put on webinars with Steckos and Schleip and Gail Headley and a whole bunch of other researchers and practitioners. They put on webinars free and paid throughout the whole year. So Robert Schleip and Carla Stecco, they just actually within the last couple of weeks, they just had their own individual webinars on how fascial tissue is connected with the autonomic nervous system and the communication that happens back and forth and influences and so on and so forth. And they're presenting all of their research. So it's awesome. And with Carla, with her stuff, she said, you know, the stuff that she was presenting in that webinar, it hadn't been published yet. So it's in press. It's getting ready to be published. So it's pretty awesome to be able to have access to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I am a member of that, and I have seen those. Yeah. Did your treatment shift at all after you went to your first, or after any of the congresses?
Actually, my treatments changed. I had the fortunate opportunity to be in the cadaver lab with Gil for about 4 years, and then to be a teacher assistant of his, like many others have. It's just an awesome experience. And my treatments changed after the first week in the lab, because we were taught at school, technique A applied to tissue B gives you result C. And when we got into the lab, we started testing the technique to see if technique A actually contacted tissue B. And when we realized that it didn't, well, how the hell were we getting result C? How was that happening, right? Yeah. So it was kind of funny. My friend Chris, who runs the Somatic Explorations Cadaver Lab in Coquitlam here, I remember calling him at the end of the Monday, the first day back after the week in the cadaver lab. And I said, hey, did you see patients today? He's like, yep. Did you charge money today? He said, nope. Did you touch anybody? Nope. Do you know how to touch anybody? Nope. So we had to sort of relearn how to apply manual therapy. Wow. to whatever tissue. So that was back in 2004 or something like that. Right. And that happened for 4 years in a row, where we would test out techniques and see what we could get to and see what we could influence and we could touch. We now know that you can only touch the skin and you can influence everything else underneath it, and that, there's a large neurological component to everything that we do. So my treatments changed with the cadaver lab experiences, but then my treatments also changed once I started following the San Diego Pain Summits and learning all about pain and pain science and the neurological influences and stuff. And that changed how I treated also. Nice. Not just with my hands, but how I communicated. That the Pain Summit had a huge influence on
nice. Me. One of the places that the question came from was, I learned a lot about, a lot of different things. It took me a while to process out all the information from the Congress, but one of the things that I learned from you back in 2000, I think it was 2013, in one of the AGMs, where you and I and Doug Alexander were teaching, and my class ended early, and I walked in for the last half hour of your day one. And one of the reasons that I called you a leader in the intro was you were the first person I had watched teach answer a question with a long pause and saying, I don't know. Let's find out. If I can't, if somebody in the room knows, then let's go for it. And but otherwise, let's find out over lunch. We all got cell phones. Let's find out. And I was just like, yeah, the humble approach to just being the authenticity, not humble, just humble, but the authenticity, and it really it changed me, and I appreciate it. So thank you for that. And I guess we could probably keep going for another hour, but I wanted to find out. We'll take another 5 minutes, but your course, the ligamentous articular strain. Can you give me like an elevator speech of what people would get out of a course with you?
Sure. So so the technique's not mine. I didn't invent it. It came out of American osteopathy. There's debate of who started it. Was it Andrew Taylor Still or was it William Sutherland? So I just blanket say it came from both of them, because William Sutherland was taught by, William Sutherland was taught by Andrew Taylor Still. So it's theirs. But I have updated the research and the science that supports the techniques, and sort of that supports techniques. So we've changed. I've sort of changed the narrative of the techniques. How we apply the techniques is still exactly the same. We still use the same principles as what gets taught in the classically trained last courses from the osteopaths. But what we've done is we've incorporated all the new research into pain science and fascial tissues and pain referral patterns and how we communicate and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very slow technique. It takes a long time to communicate with the nervous system and to make a change. We don't look at trying to fix anybody. We don't look at trying to create symmetry in the body. You know, this is an asymmetrical, nonlinear feedback system. So it's asymmetrical. Things are bigger and smaller on different sides of the body. So why are therapists so focused on trying to make it symmetrical when it's impossible to do that? Yeah. It's just frustrating. So
it's a results oriented, or you're trying to give a tool that can help.
Yeah. There's been some amazing case studies that I've had and that my students have had, and then there's been some case studies where it was just kind of like, well, it didn't quite work. It's like, well, it did something, but it didn't have the impact that that maybe our ego had led us to believe that it would have, or it had an impact later. There's a lot of times where the nervous system needs time to adapt and make a change to a new normal. So
yeah, I get that for sure. And sometimes it's like you'll introduce it and then you move on to something else and come back to it, and the body's ready, the nervous system's ready. So I'm going to post your courses on, so people have a link to all that. But you're also a speaker at, what's coming up for you? You were supposed to do the British.
So the British Fascial Symposium is starts in May 15th, 16th, 17th. It was supposed to be in London, England, but then the global issue happened, so they converted everything to being online. So I have, I think I've got Monday and Tuesday, so it's at the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 17th, 18th of May. I've got 2 one-hour courses. The courses are going to be heavily sort of science-based in pain science and fascia, mechanoreceptors, pain referral patterns, that kind of stuff. And then anybody who registers with the British Fascial Symposium, they get access to everybody's courses for that week, and I think for a number of months afterwards. And once you register for that, there's a special link that you'll get to a page of mine where I've got the course manual, the webinar again, and then all the videos that I discuss in the webinar. So you'll have access to that link, which has all the videos, and you'll be able to take those videos and watch them, play them in real time, and so on and so forth. So yeah, British Fascial Symposium.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're presenting. I'm going to sign up for that. I had forgotten all about that with, in the last 6 weeks. I was aware of it before, and I knew I couldn't go, but now that this is an opportunity to do it online.
There's some awesome people that are going to be there. Like Robert Schleip's going to be there. Sue Hintzman's going to be there. David Lezenik is going to be there. So he's a biointegrity guy. So there's tons of people that are signed up for the online stuff. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic symposium.
Yeah. So if we wrap things up a little bit, if you have one thing that you would like to leave, like a pearl of wisdom or a knowledge bomb that you want to sort of something that took you decades to learn and you can give it away in 1 minute or 5 minutes?
Well, just a couple of things. That I've got a book that's coming out. We're just in the final stages of getting it made, getting it published and so on and so forth. So
I'm supposed to be
on.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, that's on ligament pain referral patterns. A lot of people don't know that ligaments actually have specific reproducible pain referral patterns. And that it's all based on research and science, all published papers and texts. And it includes the pain referral patterns. It includes all the images. It includes charts of neurological innervations. So there is no one neurological innervation for joint tissues that exists. There is for muscles. You can find a muscle and you know what nerve root is, C5, C6, C7, and so on. But for specific ligaments and specific joints, there's no one all-encompassing chart. It's kind of just spaced throughout all of the texts and the research papers. What I've done is I've accumulated everything into the text. So I've gone through and I've done all that stuff. It's still a project that is always sort of happening, always acquiring new information. So I've accumulated all that into there, and then we've created brand new images for the neurological innervations for cervical, thoracic, lumbar, pelvis, and then all the extremity joints onward. So it's a huge project.
Me too, I got you sent me the post. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, as far as therapists go in practicing, the one thing would be get as much education post-grad as you can from people that you respect, and talk to other people, talk to your other colleagues and see who they respect and who they've had good experiences with. And then just start continuing to educate yourself, slow down in your practice, take your time. An hour can go by really quickly, or it can take a long time to go by. Sort of just change your perspective and slow down your hours. And, we're there to help a person. We're not there to fix, a car. So just take your time and just always be learning.
Nice. Slow down. I like that. That's really awesome, Rob. Well,
so
go ahead.
If people want to get a hold of me, they can go to Last Site, LASTSITE. They can go to lastsite.ca. That's ligamentous articular strain technique. There's a new webpage that we're just getting built right now. It's called ligamentpain.com. Mm-hmm. You can go to that. That'll be where you can purchase the posters in the book, and license the images and stuff afterwards. So yeah, lastsite.ca, or on Facebook, right? People can always find me on Facebook and send me messages that way. I'm pretty good at getting messages back to people, within a couple of days at least. Yeah, I'd love to hear from anybody.
For sure. I think people are going to want to ask you lots after this, because I feel like we only just kind of got started.
Just scratch the surface.
Yeah. But I'll put all those links up on the YouTube channel and Facebook, and I have to admit I'm not really sure how to work with Instagram, so maybe somebody else can help me with that. But I really want to thank you so much for all your generosity and all sharing your knowledge and spending some time, and I'm sure we'll catch up another time. And when the Fascia Congress comes here in Montreal, you've got a place to stay.
Cool, absolutely.